Good morning. Good morning, my beautiful friends. This is your wake up call with Maui Paul. I am Maui Paul. We are here today to say some nice things about ourselves. And it's just so important for us to do that because this world doesn't always say nice things about us. In fact, negative mental narratives are very predominant in the world. And so we're going to say some good stuff about us. We're going to reinforce the good things that are in our lives. And as we do that, as we reinforce these good feelings, these good thoughts, we are really improving our futures. The fact is that our future is created by the now moment that we're living in. So what we do now is what creates our future. So we are here today to say some nice and good things about us. And thank you guys so much for joining. Good morning, Lauren. Good morning, Dan. Good morning, Amanda. Hello from -6 degree Omaha. Oh my goodness, Dan. Stay warm, okay? Don't go outside too much. I hope that all of the work that you have to do is inside work because -6 degrees, ooh, that's some cold stuff. It's about 35 degrees right here where I'm at, and I am cold enough. Thank you very much. Anyhow, so yeah, we're going to do the thing that we do every day. We're going to pull a card off the deck. I'm going to ask you if you are that card and the affirmation on the card, and we're going to respond out loud together. I am that affirmation. As we do that, we are building into our lives. We are building these internal narratives, these powerful, powerful thought forms. A belief is nothing more than a thought that we've had over and over and over again. And so oftentimes the beliefs that we had, these beliefs they come from childhood. These thoughts that we've had over and over and over again. Well, in childhood we have the ability, that's when they start, and so those are the ones that we've had the ability to think for the longest. And the fact is that the thoughts that we think when we are children are oftentimes not particularly well formed, and yet we think it once, and then the neural pathway is formed, then we think it again, and then we think it again. And then we find that we are in our adulthood and we are being controlled by the thoughts that we had when we were children. So let's just subvert that a little bit. Let's circumvent these old normal pathways. Let's make new ones. And let's pull the card and say that today I am free. I am free. I release attachment and embrace possibility. So I am free. I release attachment and embrace possibility. Are you free? You are free. You release attachment and embrace possibility. And I'm writing that down in the comments right now that I am free. I release attachment and embrace possibility. Good morning, Carly. It is good to see you here today. Amanda, of course, always beats me to the punch. But we are declaring today that we are free indeed, that we release attachment and embrace possibility. We release attachment to who we were. We release the attachment to what happened in our past. How often in life do we take a look at how our lives have gone up until now, and we look at all the times that we have fallen short of our own expectations. And then we say, well, if we've always done that, then it must be that way in the future. And of course, that's not true. We grow, we evolve, we change, and we are free. We are free indeed. We release attachment, just like the seeds of the dandelion release attachment from the flower and fly on the wind. And where are they going to land? They don't know where they'll land when they release the attachment. They just know that the plant that they were once attached to was holding them back. That the old self is dying and the new self is blooming, and not just blooming, but multiplying in blooming. We release attachment to who we used to be. We release attachment to who we used to think that we were. I remember that there were so many times in my life where I decided that I was a certain way, and then I felt like I needed to act that certain way, even when it was holding me back, even when I knew that the decisions that I was making were bad for me. But because I had decided that I was a certain way, I had to be congruent in that decision. Good morning, Frank. Good morning, Mima. It's good to see you guys today. And so now I declare that I am free, that I release attachment, and that I embrace possibility. How often do we fear change? How often do we fear because something was a certain way for a very long time? And then the change itself, we fear, we're afraid. We say, well, if it's changing, then it must be getting worse, waiting for that other shoe to drop. Or things are going really well, so something must go bad. That's how things balance out. But these are just stories in our head. These are just stories that we tell ourselves. The reality is that as we release attachment, the possibility that we embrace is possibility that is unaffiliated with what was. What was is dead to us. What was is not important. What is right now is important. What will be is not something that we can truly predict. We think the sun will rise tomorrow, and we think that our lives will be fundamentally the same, and yet every day is different. And yet every day is different because of the situations we find ourselves in, and also because we are different. It's not the world that changes, it's us that change. And so we are free. This week, we are free to make new choices. We are free to make different decisions. We are free to embrace new ways of being. We release attachment. We embrace possibility. That's what freedom is all about. And with freedom comes great responsibility. You know, the responsibility that comes with privilege, the responsibility that comes with freedom. The responsibility that comes with freedom is the responsibility to know and to correctly discern and sift through our own desires, to know ourselves well enough to say this is good for me and this other thing is not, to say that the attachment that I'm releasing, that attachment is something that's not serving me. We are free people, and we are more free than most. We are more free than most because of the fact that we choose intentionally to have plastic minds, to have minds that are malleable, to have points of view that are open to change, subject to interpretation. We release attachment. We embrace possibility. And when I look at the people around me, when I truly consider their lives, when I consider what I know of them, I recognize that each and every one has taken tremendous risks in order to become the people that they are, and that each and every one of them would not trade that risk for anything. That the risks that they took, that the changes that they made, that the differences that they had in their lives, that the different perspectives that they cultivated have created in them a person that they are proud of. And I hope that you're proud of the person that you are, just like I'm proud of you. Just like I recognize that the possibilities that you have embraced have taken you to a place where you get to be my friend and I get to be yours. How beautiful that is. I am free. You are free too. We choose to be free, just like Mima says. We choose to be free. We choose freedom over slavery. We choose freedom over the boxes that society wants to put us into, and say that, oh, in order to be a functioning member of society, you need to do this, that, and the other thing. In order to believe one thing, you must also accept this basket of beliefs. We are free to choose to believe what we want to believe. We are free to make choices and then make different choices. We are free to decide that we don't have to be who we used to be. We can present ourselves differently every day. I think that every day we are born again. Every day I wake up, every day I have the ability to manifest change in this world, to manifest change in myself. And every day I am the wisest and smartest and most intelligent person, the most experienced, the most compassionate that I've ever been. We are free. We release attachment and we embrace possibility. Good morning, Shauna. It's good to see you here. And the attachment that we release, the things that we are attached to, only hold us back. The things that at one point are an anchor that help us to that help us to be that help us to handle life at a time when we are just forming, when we are forming our ideals, when we are forming what is important to us. That attachment that we form does not serve us forever. Lauren reminds me now that it's actually Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Celebration of freedom, a celebration of equal rights, a celebration of the fact that inherently each and every one of us, no matter how differently we look on the outside, are all inherently the same on the inside. Today we are free. We release attachment to our past, in the same way that our country released attachment to the way that it used to do things and decided to do things differently and embraced a different possibility, a possibility where all men really are created equal and where the laws of the country adapted to recognize that we are free. We release attachment and embrace possibility. And I am so excited to see where the freedom that you have and the freedom that I have allow us to manifest the type of change that we want to see in the world, to manifest the type of change that frees others from the slavery of their own ideas, of who they are, and ultimately frees us all from the judgment of having to live up to an expectation of who we think we have to be. Today we release attachment. This week we release attachment. And today, as we go through our lives, let's be aware, let's be cognizant of the ways that we are being that no longer serve us. The decisions that we're making because we've made it 100 times and it feels safe, but it isn't serving us anymore. Let's fly. Let's fly on the winds of change. Let's surf those winds of change and trust that the place that we land will be fertile soil where we can drop deep roots. Let's release the attachment to who we were and embrace who we are in the service of who we are becoming. We are free. And we are indeed enlightened there, Frank. It is the path to enlightenment. The ego tells us who we are, and boy, do we argue for our chains. I hear it all the time when I confront people with a way that they're not free, and they argue for why it must be that way, why they have to be that way. And I listen to them argue so passionately, so vociferously for the chains that bind them, for the things that they hate, for the metal ball around their ankle. And as we are free, let's have compassion for the people who are not yet there. For the people who would prefer not to be free, because to be free implies responsibility. It implies autonomy. It implies having to make decisions and to be responsible for the outcomes of those decisions. And how many people are not yet ready for that message, who are not yet ready to make decisions and be responsible for the outcomes of those decisions? Let's have compassion for them, even as we are rising up on the winds of change, even as we rise up, knowing that the place that we fall, the place that we land, is the place where we are meant to be planted. I remember the day when I decided that I was free, when I decided that I didn't have to be defined by all the failures of my past, where I didn't have to be defined, or I didn't have to blame society around me for my own shortcomings. I remember it. I was living down in Costa Rica. I was running a restaurant directly into the ground because of how smart that I was and how I refused to just look at the signs that were all around me. Because I had this idea that if I wasn't being successful, that it was somebody else's fault, that the world owed me something. And when I recognized that I was the source of all of my own woe, and I decided to intentionally change that I decided to intentionally release the attachment that I had about the things that had worked in the past but were no longer serving me, in that moment, my life started to get better. And I remember that I was across the street at my friend's house, and I was looking at my little restaurant that had nobody sitting in it and an employee smoking a cigarette out front. And I said to myself, I said, this is not working. Why am I working it? Why am I pretending that it eventually will? Even as I go to the ATM and throw money at this project every single day. And so I decided to release attachment to who I once was and to embrace the possibility of who I could become. And it wasn't but a couple of months later, when my life had fundamentally changed, I had decided to liquidate that investment that was doing nothing for me and to put my focus instead into other more powerful relationships that were, even though those relationships were not the ones that were in keeping with my self-image, with who I thought I was. There's a book called Psycho-Cybernetics. It's written by one of the very first plastic surgeons ever to become a licensed plastic surgeon in the United States, and one of the people who really developed a lot of the plastic surgery techniques that would eventually really form the foundation of the profession. The book is called Psycho-Cybernetics, and the whole book is about self-image. And there's a story in that book. He talks about how he worked with this person who was working odd jobs, and this person had a deformity on their face. And because they had a deformity on their face, nobody would really take them seriously, and even they wouldn't take themselves that seriously. They thought to themselves, I'm broken. How could I have a good job? How could I have a career? How could I have love? How could I have fulfillment? And in the book, he talks about how he had to really convince this person to do this surgery. And then after he did the surgery, after he fixed this person's face and the person looked at themselves in the mirror, that they very quickly changed their job, they changed their relationships, they changed their whole outlook on life, that everything about their life became better because they saw themselves better. Because instead of looking in the mirror every day and seeing this deformed, broken person, they looked in the mirror every day and saw this person that was whole and complete. And he said it wasn't the physical change that made the difference. In the book, he talked about how it was the emotional change. It was the new perspectives the person gained. It was the new sense of self-love that they got. It had nothing to do with the deformity and everything to do with their perspective. He went on to not only pioneer plastic surgery, but the author of this book also went on to really understand the psychology of why it is that the shape of our body, of the way that we look, how that really affects us profoundly and deeply. Because we are attached very much to the way that we look. We're very attached to our body. We are intimately acquainted with it. But the book ultimately was not about plastic surgery. It wasn't about his successes in the field. It was about that very first plastic surgery that he ever did, and he did it at cost. He did it for only what it cost him so that he could have somebody to do it on. And about the tremendous changes that happened in that person's life when they started to see themselves differently. This card is our invitation to see ourselves differently. So let's see ourselves differently today. Let's abandon the thought forms that no longer serve us, releasing that attachment to who we once were so that we can become who we are and embrace the possibilities that exist in our lives and be amazed, just as I was when I did this, just as this plastic surgeon's patient was when he did this. Be amazed at the results and become more than we ever thought possible. My friends, I am free today. You are free. We are free indeed. And as Dan quoted Martin Luther King Jr., he said, free at last, thank God Almighty, I am free at last. We are free at last. Let's be free today. And let's be free to really grow into the people that we were born to be. When we close our eyes and we envision the ultimate versions of ourselves, let's be that. Let's open our eyes and have that still be us. Because we're worth it. You're worth it. Thanks, guys, so much for being here. I see there's all kinds of comments. What a great card. I love this one. Yeah. So, well, Sean, I know you love this card, so I'm sorry you were stuck on account for a little while. But good morning to you. I hope that you were able to catch the wake-up call in its entirety, because I know that you like this card in particular. Let's see here. So Frank talks about how releasing attachment is the way to enlightenment. I agree, Frank. And what is enlightenment? Enlightenment is not just a personal thing. You can't hide a city on a hill. Nobody lights a lamp and puts it underneath of a cover. The whole point of enlightenment is to light the way for others, is to be that for others, is to be that strength, to be that light, to guide the path of other people so they don't strike their foot on a stone as they walk. And so indeed it is. Good morning, Pamela. It is good to see you today. Yeah. Janet talks about arguing for their limitations instead of focusing on their freedom. Yeah, I see it all the time. I talk to people all the time when I have my perspective. Okay, so I did an event at work where we were talking about philosophy stuff, and I expounded on some of my philosophies. And the facilitator of the event said, Paul, in all due respect, with all due respect to you, you live on a different planet than I do. And I said, well, come join me. This planet's pretty great. You also could live on this planet. Come on over. It's a great planet to live on. Do you think I live in delusion? Perhaps I do, but my delusion's a very happy one. And I see the fruit in my life. Well, know a tree by its fruit. You don't pick apples off of thorn bushes, do you? When we see apples on the ground, we know that there's an apple tree close by. And when I see the fruit of my life, I recognize that my perspectives on that life are serving me. And when I talk to somebody who argues for their own limitations, I look at the fruit around them and I say, that fruit is bitter. I don't want that fruit. Why would I want to plant a bitter tree? I'm going to plant one that produces abundant fruit, that is sweet to the taste and healthy and provides wellness to others, not just myself, and provides it in abundance. Amanda says that she became free when she broke the chain of alcohol that held onto her so tight. Alcohol does that, Amanda. It's one reason that you will not often see me with a drink in my hand. I have no judgment at all toward those people who choose that as their intoxicant of choice. None whatsoever. But I recognize that for me, it could easily become a snare, and so I stay away. I stay away from the things that could ensnare me. I stay away from the things that cause me to make bad decisions. But come New Year's, when it comes time to raise a toast to a new year, I am raising my toast of champagne with everybody else. And in the summertime, when I am hot and I want to drink a beer, I will. But I do it on my own terms, and I do it with my own relationship. And I think that that's important. Lauren's telling me to preach. I love it. Yeah. And you know, Amanda, I'm really proud of you too. Just like Frank's proud of you, I'm proud of you as well. Alcohol's a rough one to get rid of. It's a rough one. You know, I just had a memorial service for my dad last week, and alcohol was one of the primary reasons why he passed away at 62. And I'm not angry with him for making that choice. That was his choice. And I'm not angry at alcohol for doing that to him. I recognize that he made a sovereign and empowered choice in his life, and that he has the consequences of that choice. And so I'm choosing a different choice. And sometimes, even though it's painful, people help us to grow by their examples of what not to do. And one of the reasons that I live my life the way that I do is because I don't ever want to be an example of what not to do. So Janet says that she became free when she decided to love everything about herself, every version of herself, every decision she's ever made, every step ever taken, and all the versions and decisions yet to come. And I know you're a magic person, Jan. You're a very magical person. Inspiration for the I Am cards. And when you were over at my place the other day, talking about how the every version of yourself, every decision you've ever made, you find out that you've survived it, and that gives you a high probability, a good amount of faith that whatever's going on in your life right now, even if you've never dealt with that before, even if it seems like it's really painful and potentially even life ending and incredibly transformative, that because you've survived everything in the past, that you are very likely to survive everything in the future. What a beautiful perspective that was. I took it and I yoinked that and I use it in my life too. Because sometimes life don't go the way I want it to. And when that's the case, I just think back at those words that you said. You're full of wisdom, Jan. It's nice that Donna came here. Good morning, Donna. Good morning, Pamela. Good morning, Frank. Good morning, Teresa. It is good to see you guys here. Thank you so much for joining this holiday edition, this Martin Luther King Jr. Day edition of the Wake Up Call. You guys are awesome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting this. Thank you for sharing. It's always so fun when I come across my own my own show that's been shared by somebody else, and it just Facebook decides to serve it up to me. You guys are amazing, and thank you for continuing to teach me about who I am and what I can release. Good morning, Eric. It's good to see you today. Thank you so much for your support of this project and for your support and for your love of me. It's a beautiful thing to experience, and I just really appreciate it. I'll be back tomorrow again at 9 a.m. with another wake up call, and we're going to go over something else. We're going to go over another way that we can be. But right now, let's just use this card as our touchstone, as our permission slip to do things differently, to make the radical changes necessary in order to live the radical life that we have been called to live. This world is full of people who are going through the motions, who are just doing the same thing until one day they'll die. And that's not me. And that's not you either, because we are free. So I'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 9 a.m. and we will go through another wake up call card. And yeah, until then, I love you and I care about you and I think you're amazing. And I really appreciate everything that you bring into my life. So thank you for doing that. I'll talk to you all tomorrow at 9 a.m. Until we meet again, aloha from paradise.